And hey, Steve, we're going to bring in Vai Sikahema on his birthday. Elder Sikahema right there. Steve, do you have any advice for Elder Sikahema as he moves forward?
It's your P day, bro. You don't have to wear
Why
the
has
white
he got
shirt.
a white shirt on?
Bro, you're okay. Like, it's okay.
Steve, these are my pajamas. I sleep in a white shirt. I take the tie off when I go to sleep, but I keep the white shirt.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, look at him right there. Hey, I can't tell you, this guy had more life, more stories, more. You talk about a healer. He was a guy that could be tension, and he could break it with a great story, a great joke. Nothing ever brought him down. And he was one of the guys our freshman year. We had a lot of guys our freshman year. And one of the guys.
Steve.
He was one of the guys that played right away. There's a lot. This is a tough team to break into. There was a lot of great players, and Vai showed up as a freshman, and they put him right out there. It took me 2 years to get out there.
It was like, Steve, it was like gladiator school our freshman year.
Yeah.
It was like gladiator school. It was like the toughest, baddest dudes were going to survive. And frankly, Steve, we weren't sure what to make of Steve because he was it was clear he was an intellect. So that made him different from the rest of us knuckleheads who were there. But Steve had just enormous athletic talent. And that was clear. I remember one night we were walking from the Cannon Center after a meal. We were walking up to the library. I don't know why I was going to the library. You were at the library all the time.
There was a girl up there you're going to meet.
I guarantee it. I guarantee that too.
But I remember Steve just lamenting the fact that he had made a serious mistake. And I remember the school that you were talking about. Steve had wanted to go to, he felt like he should have gone to North Carolina. Was that one of the schools, Steve, that recruited you hard?
Great memory. That tells you that you know the story, because I was a freshman. I show up and this is a great, you know the story. I'm 8th string on the depth chart. 8th string on the depth chart. You know what that means? I'm running the plays of Wyoming and Utah, and Kyle Whittingham's killing me, trying to, the defense doesn't, they're too stupid to know that I'm just a BYU quarterback acting like the Utah quarterback. And so I was getting killed, and I remember talking to Vi. I was down as I've ever been, and I said, Vi, I could have been starting at North Carolina right now, and they don't even know my name here. I don't even know what I'm doing here. And I was like, that's when I called my dad. I said, Dad, I'm coming home. And my dad said, I live with quitters, bro. So that was it. That was Vi. I can't believe that was you that I was complaining to coming out of the Cannon Center.
Did Vi give you any advice? What did Vi tell you on that big night?
Vi's like, I don't know your name either, bro.
Hey, I wanted to know if I could go with them. Let's go. Hey, if they had the transfer portal back then, Steve and I would have left that first semester. We just felt so out of place. I had committed to go to Arizona State because I was a running back. I wanted to go to Arizona State, but Frank Cush got fired the month before the signing date, and I called Lavelle and I said, "Is there still a scholarship left?" And he said, "We'll make some changes, but you need to sign and come. We need to know this week. If you're not coming, then the scholarship's going somewhere else." And I ended up going to BYU under those terms. But we had, honestly, that freshman class, think about this, 3 number 1 draft picks, Steve Young, Gordon Hudson, and Todd Shell. That's Alabama-like in 2022. We had 3 number 1 draft picks come out of our class. And Lee Johnson was in our class. He played, 19, 20 years in the NFL?
He punted more times than most anyone has ever played. Jim Herman was a pro for a while. You played pro for forever.
Bruce Hansen played
for a while.
Wayne
Adam played for years.
Adam, I mean, we had some horses on that, but we didn't really know it until, probably – I think maybe we had some sense our freshman year that we were a pretty good class, but we didn't have anything to compare it to, but we just knew that it was. Hey, by the way, Steve always loves to tell the story of that he was 8th on the depth chart. Now I'm going to put Steve on the.
I'm trying to think of the 8 quarterbacks because I was there the next year. I don't remember we had 8. Jim
Right?
Kimball, Eric Chris Marzick.
No. Royce
Okay.
Bybee,
Okay, Royce.
Royce
Yeah.
Bybee.
Kimball, Eric Krasmarzik, Mark Halgo.
Oh yeah, I forgot Mark.
How many is that? 5, 6?
Well, you didn't say
there-
Jim because obviously
there
Jim was
was-
there.
We got
There was a guy from California named Mike. He had a mustache.
Mike.
Was
he
it
was
Wilson?
not Will. It was Mike.
You know what I'm talking about.
With the mustache. He had the mustache.
Yeah, he had the
And then
mustache.
Jim and Mark and Eric and
We're missing somebody, but that's 7 right there.
Royce. Jim
Everybody was on
again.
scholarship.
Yeah, I was 8th string. There was like, and then I remember. Do you remember Eddie Reed? You were in varsity right away, Vi. I mean, Vi went right up. Vi was like, oh, he's a superstar. The rest of us played JV. We had to go down to UNLV on the AstroTurf on 130 degrees. The shoes, my Nikes,
I believe
melted.
it. I
They
believe
melted.
it.
And we ran the wishbone because we'd been playing the wishbone ready for the Wyoming game. And Andy Reid's like, Steve, you run the wishbone so well. We're going to go down. And so now I'm trying to play for BYU, and I'm running the freaking Wyoming wishbone for BYU. And we go down to the game, and Andy Reid, it's my turn to start because Mark Halgo and Jim Kimmel and I we traded starts in the JVs. And Mark Halgo's dad came down to the game, traveled from Minnesota. And
Moved
so
him in.
Andy Reid walks into the locker room before the game, goes, hey, Steve, Mark Halgo's dad has flown in from Minnesota. So do you mind if he starts today? Because his dad's here. I'm like, oh, yeah. Mark Halgo's dad can come next week to Air Force, bro. This is my shot. Andy Reid's trying to take my shot away. Holy
Oh
shit.
my
That's
goodness.
I got a question for both of you. Who's most surprised, Steve, that Vi is a general authority of the church, or Vi that Steve's writing books about love?
Both pretty surprising. I think we you know what? In our group of guys, there was a vicious faith. You know what I mean? It was like we were guys that had been from a long ways away. Like Vi came from a long ways away. Jim Herman came from places away. I came from places away. There's a lot of, like, I say vicious faith when I'm saying it's been tested. Like it wasn't we didn't have to go show it all. We've been through it a little bit. And so I think there was a sense that no matter what, I tell you what I never wondered is the both of us be here today kind of with, pretty strong faith still. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
I
great.
agree with that.
Hey,
I mean, seriously, if you just go back, that 1980 group, if you would have said, hey, 2 guys out of that class, one's going to be a Hall of Fame in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the other one's going to be a general authority, nobody would have picked the 2 of us. Probably.
who would they have picked?
Yeah,
picked?
like pick the guys. That's what I want to know. Who
Well, I
would
don't
have been
know.
the chief?
That'd be a hard one because maybe I would have picked this Divine. Maybe we just don't realize that.
Hey, you know what? You know why it would have been hard to pick? It's because guys like Wayman Hamilton,
Right.
who was about as crazy. He didn't want to come to BYU. He was recruited by USC, Oklahoma, all the big schools, and
Right. That's right.
He hated BYU. He hated Provo, but he came because his mother joined the church when we were seniors, and he came here because his mother committed him to come to BYU, and that guy he's been in like 3 bishoprics now. I think he's on his 4th bishopric, YSA bishopric in Provo. That may be an even bigger reach, Steve. If you knew Wayman the way we knew Wayman, right?
Right.
If you
Yes.
knew Wayman the way we knew Wayman, that's an even bigger reach.
Yeah.
But it speaks of how far we've all come in the 40 years past. I mean, I'm just so proud of everybody.
Yeah, you guys have been great.
What a good time. I mean, you talk about the heyday. Lavelle Edwards in his heyday. Leslie in a heyday. Well, I mean, the team had just been expanded. Expectations that we would be undefeated and every year and some good times. Wow, so many good times, so many fun times. And Vi, we really were all friends. We got along. We had a great time and a lot of good times. With Lee Johnson and Scott Robinson and these guys.
Scotty. So I have a question for you guys, because I get asked this all the time, right? And I was back there with you guys, didn't come till the next year in '81, but then I've been part of this for all of these years. And everybody always asks me, what's the greatest team of all time at BYU? And so, Vi and I were part of that '84 team. I always have to mention that. But my next one, I'm always like, the '83 team from a talent perspective, that one that Steve quarterbacked, and we went down and lost that opener at Baylor, but then came back and just didn't lose. And then it became like I never thought we were ever going to lose a football game again. After we got rolling in '83 and into '84 and into '85. The 96ers all say, well, what about us, right? And then Jim always says, Blaine, are you discounting? Jimmy Mack always like, Blaine, are you discounting 1980? Like, come on, that team was crazy good. So it always comes down to 80, 83, 84, and 96. What do you guys think? What's your vote on that?
Well, I watched 80 painfully because I had to sit from, I remember Brian Hazelgren, because I didn't get to go on the travel squad as a freshman. I was up in his cabin up in the outside of Heber, and we were listening on KSL, just sad, like two sad sacks, listening to, and just, they beat UTEP 75-0, and like they were just killing people. And so it's like, I'm not going to be part of the bar fight, which is like these dumb questions that you just asked, Blaine.
Come on.
I'm going to appreciate greatness. When I see great, it's like me, Peyton Manning or Tom Brady in the last 20 years. It's like, can we not appreciate the greatness and then just kind of like accept it? Or do we need to pick one? And then I say to myself, okay, if you put a gun to my head, of course it's 83. But anyway, I'm not going to.
Vi, here's a question that I want to ask you about Steve. So Steve was a football, baseball, and basketball star on the East Coast in high school. Danny Ainge was a star in the same sports on the West Coast. In a cage fight to settle who was the better athlete, who wins?
Ainge, wow, he was so good, man.
Ainge has the height and the reach.
Good. Yeah, he was good in other. Vi, don't answer that because I'm sitting here, because I think you'd probably say Danny, but I will tell you, Vi, I don't know if you remember, but I convinced Floyd Johnson, who was the equipment manager, because you could not that '80 basketball team with Fred Roberts and Runya and
Trumbo and what a team!
You couldn't get in. And so I told Floyd, if I cleaned up the towels in the visitors' locker room, can I sit? I sat on the visiting bench at the end of the bench, handing out towels my freshman year, so I could get a seat to see the great Danny Ainge play.
Wow!
Because he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable.
Vi, did you want to answer that, or are you just going to stay quiet?
No, you know what? I think the fact that I would only lean to Danny because he played professional sports in two sports.
That's right. Well, I would say this: he's a much better basketball player. I'm a better football player than him.
He didn't
throw. It comes down to baseball.
You threw a no-hitter.
He played pro baseball for a little while, didn't he?
Yeah, but I don't think he threw a no-hitter.
Yeah, you threw a no-hitter in high school, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve threw a no-hitter in high school?
Yes, he did.
New Canaan High School's never been the same since they faced Steve Young. Did you just have, what pitches did you throw? Did you have magic that day when you threw a no-hitter?
I had the high heater, the inside heater, and the outside heater.
I love it.
Steve is a lefty. Hey, I don't know if you guys, I'll tell you the real quick story. That I had a role in Steve going to San Francisco. I may have shared this with Blaine.
Yes, you told me, but I want you to tell this, yeah.
And Steve will remember the story as it rolls out. Steve is, he's in Tampa, and my rookie year, we're playing, I think it may have been Steve's second year there after he left the USFL, but we're playing the last game of the season in St. Louis. And both teams are like 3-12 going into that last game. You remember this, Steve?
Yeah, you set an NFL record that day. I watched you because we were both whoever lost
was going to get the first pick.
choice. And
exactly.
So our team you returned like 4 punts for touchdowns. Nobody would tackle because they had to lose. And set an NFL record that day. You're right. I forgot about that.
Amazing
that day.
I returned 2 punts for touchdowns in the second quarter, and we win 21-17. And Steve had, all Steve had was James Wilder, maybe probably one of the top 3 backs in the NFL.
Yes.
There was no one else. There was no one else on that team. So because we won, people in the organization were so mad that we won that game because they wanted the first pick. Because
they won it off of your kicks. I know where you're going. If you hadn't returned those kicks, we would have won, and then you would have the first pick, and I would have not gotten out of Tampa because they wouldn't have taken Vinny Testaverde because Ray Perkins hated lefties and hated southpaws, and I wouldn't have gotten to San Francisco. I do owe you my life. I owe you my life. I forgot about that. I do owe you everything. Oh my gosh.
Steve and I have
my life. I forgot about that.
When Steve writes his next book, he'll include
yes.
Vai Sikahema doesn't return 2 punts for touchdowns. And Steve, here's what happened to me. It was the last game of the season, and the next day was a Monday. We voted on the Pro Bowl. Because of those 2 punt returns, I get to go to the Pro Bowl. And my agent had negotiated, they call them escalator clauses. And if you reach certain things, that they would tear up your contract. And one of them that he put in was if I go to the Pro Bowl as a rookie, they tear up my contract and would pay me whoever was making the most.
So we made you rich, and you made me.
You guys are best friends.
Sikahema did it for me.
All the way back.
I'm glad we were able in 2023.
But Vi told me this story before. I didn't realize that Steve didn't even know this story, Vi. I can't even believe Steve didn't know it.
I known it deep down.
He
before,
was there. He knows the
put it all together because we had to lose to get that pick, and that we lost. And he made it happen. And I think the Cardinals were trying to lose too. Nobody, it was amazing. The line of scrimmage was like, no one really moved. And then kind of like fell down.
Nobody's covering punts.
Nobody had to. And Vi was the one's like, hey, you know what? Too bad. I'm going for the Pro Bowl.
Nobody was trying. Nobody was trying, but I'm the 53rd man on the roster, on the 53-man roster. I'm trying to get a job the next year, so I'm the only one going 110%.
That is awesome.
Hey,
Pure
listen,
gold.
our live stream's hopping tonight. Richard just joined us from Panama. We've got folks from all around the world.
We've got Japan in the house, Panama in the house, Australia in the house tonight. It's so cool that this is all over the world tonight.
So Steve, we're gonna let you go here. We want to hit you with 5 quick questions. We ask all our guests. We put Robbie through it. We put Marie through it. We're gonna put Vi through it here in just a little bit.
He has the benefit of listening to your 5 questions, and you're not supposed to think about these. You just first thing that comes to your head. And so here we go. Your favorite sports movie?
Oh my gosh, favorite sports movie. Roy Hobbs.
The Natural?
The Natural.
With Robert Redford, yeah. Favorite singer or band? Vice plugging his ears.
Yeah.
Oh, Vice singer or band. That changes through the years, of course.
Who's today?
Today.
I have to remind Steve that I don't remember what year it was, but he and I and Herm and Lee and Brenda and some girls.
Oh, yeah, we Earth, Wind, and Fire back in the day.
Yeah, we went to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and we also went to the Janet Jackson concert together.
Yeah, so we were like, there's some great stuff. But today's probably Young the Giant or I tell you what, there's some country music. I was never a really country fan, but I've become a real appreciator of some of the great,
Keith Urban. Or old school?
New.
Dan and Shay.
Newer. Come on.
Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks.
That's old, Vi. That's old.
Stay out of this, Vi. That's old.
Anyway, Young the Giant.
I have to say, 2 of my favorite singers that Steve will agree with. These are 2 of our favorite singers. Libby Fowler Lloyd, and Braden Young are 2 of our favorite singers, right? They definitely are, right, Steve? Steve's son, Braden, he just graduated from art school, right, Steve?
Yeah, so he's down in Utah. He's down at the Utah Shakespeare Festival this summer.
That's right.
So
awesome.
We need to get down. Brenda and I need to get down and see him.
We're going to see him. We're going to see him on Thursday. So
awesome. Yeah. So Braden, Manhattan School of Music, Manhattan School of Arts, just graduated. So phenomenal. Okay. Favorite breakfast cereal?
I don't eat cereal anymore. So it used to be Captain Crunch, but my
Dave's going to be so happy because that's his favorite.
made my mouth bleed. So I encourage people
Listen,
not to
you got to let
anymore.
that sit in the milk for a few minutes, and then they won't bring blood out.
Yeah,
It's just
cereal. It's like cereal's out for me.
So I have to tell you. So we
Cereal's
asked
out.
Danny Ainge this when he's on. Danny's like, shredded wheat. We're like, surely like frosted shredded wheat. He goes, no, like just the plain old ones,
And
like
he's-
the little hay bales.
he said it with a pause too.
And
He
we're
just
like,
said
what?
shredded wheat, and there was like dead air, and
And
we're
then we
like,
found out that his wife makes him eat it since he's had heart problems. So that's not his favorite.
all right, number 4, Steve, favorite stadium to play in.
If I could play today, it'd be on SoFi. That's an amazing stadium in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But I loved playing anywhere in San Diego or LA back in the day because the turf was amazing and the weather was always great. Yeah, so those are my favorite stadiums.
All right.
And then the last one, favorite Lavelle Edwards memory.
We're at the Hula Bowl. He's the coach of this All-Star game in the Hula Bowl. And so all these All-Stars from all over the country are playing. That's Reggie White was there. I mean, there's some phenomenal players that were there, and he was the head coach. And he started the offensive meeting, and he's like, okay, guys, we're going to run, a few plays here. And he starts to get up to kind of draw them up. Classic Lavelle. He's like, Steve, you draw them up. I don't remember them all. Because Lavelle was an organizer, right? He was an inspiration. He was he was not, the details weren't the thing that he was really focused on. And so he got up in the Hula Bowl to try to talk through everybody. He's like, 66, yeah, Steve, right, draw this up.
That's awesome.
Great Lavelle Edwards. All right.
66 inside out away from Mike, right? That's the read.
Yeah, right?
That's the read. Inside out away from Mike. That's what we were supposed to do.
Steve, do you have any birthday wishes for Vi before you go?
Oh, Vi, happy birthday, man. That's amazing.
We've known each other since we were teenage kids, man. So
Yeah.
we've been buddies for 40
love to
plus years. So
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, Steve.
I
Grateful
feel like
for-
I track him every time I see someone. Like, I just saw Vi. He's everywhere.
He is everywhere.
Wow.
So
So Steve,
ever since he went on his mission to North Platte, Nebraska.
no, Hey, he dragged me back one summer, Steve, to do football camps all over North Dakota.
Oh, that was Floyd Johnson that was sending us out there.
Yeah. Well, you know what we did? We to kill time, we sat on the front porch and watched the dog run away for like 9 hours because we could see it for 9 hours because we couldn't see anything
I'll
else.
tell you, my freshman year, there was not a meeting house in the state of Utah. You can't name a town that was smaller than we went down to speak at from Floyd Johnson assigned us
yes.
on the fireside.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Edna, you mean,
Edna?
you just tell me some stuff. You're going to go to the Ward House and outside of Tooele. What was that little town? Like,
But all that Floyd had us do, you guys, over those years, that's what shaped us. That's for sure, right? The great Floyd Johnson.
much love to all you guys. This
Steve,
is amazing.
we kept you way longer than we said. I apologize for that, but I don't really because I loved having you on. We appreciate you. We love you, man.
Give Barb
Love
our
you
best,
guys.
and
Bye.
see you soon.
Give Barb a big
Love-
hug, and you
love
guys
you,
be
Steve.
safe coming over.
Now the truth of who saved my career.
There you go.
Vai
Hey,
Sikahema.
Steve,
That's
let me just
it.
tell you, from the position I now hold, I thank you, Steve, for all the good you've done to advance the work of the church. You are. And by the way, I was happy you came on until these guys broke the news that this is the day that Brigham Young died. It's my birthday, and I didn't know it was the day that Brigham Young died.
Thanks for that
Kind of a
tip.
downer.
Listen, when we have one of the great Youngs on the show, the anniversary of that, it has to come out. That
Yes,
Young
sir.
on the back of those jerseys has meant
Vai
so much.
Sikahema's birthday. That's all I know.
We'll just remember it as that. So thanks,
Steve.
Steve.
See you guys. Take care.
Great Steve Young on the Wise Guys tonight. You're going to want to listen to this podcast over and over again. It'll be available in the morning, and we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And what a great hour. And that brings us to our official next guest, who's celebrating his birthday tonight. The former broadcaster, NFL punt returner, and the freshman who really won the 1980 Miracle Bowl because if it wasn't for his punt return for a touchdown, Jim McMahon's Hail Mary to Clay Brown would have meant jack squat. He's also a general authority for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Our pleasure to welcome national champion Elder Vai
You have to
Sikahema
add
to the
you
Wise
have to add
Guys.
to every introduction of him now, and the guy that saved Steve
And
Young's
the guy
career.
that saved Steve Young's career. It was fun. It was fun to hear his reaction to your story.
Right. I see. It's been so long. It's been nearly 40 years since the incident happened. But I remember, after the game, we came up and shook my hand, and he was kind of down. But I think he was also happy that he knew he was gonna. He didn't know he was gonna head to San Francisco, but he knew that this was going to be his ticket out. And he gave me a big hug on the field afterwards.
Well, it worked out for both of you. Hey, what'd your wife, Kayla, get you for your birthday?
She went and got me some barbecue from a little place around the corner here. Can I say it or
Yeah,
not?
absolutely. Hey, this is our podcast. We can say whatever we want.
I think it's called R&B Barbecue here in Salt Lake, and it was yummy, delicious.
Where's Kayla? Is she going to make an appearance on the show tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to walk into the living room right now.
So, and I would, like, you were originally going to come down, and then Kayla nixed it because she said that it's your birthday and you had to stay up home. So as you get older, while you're walking in there, so everybody can meet Kayla, do the birthdays become a bigger deal to you, or are they less of a big deal to you?
It's not as big a deal. All right, she's giving me the.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Brenda said you didn't come down and just stay at the house and visit with her while Vi came in studio with us. I'll just tell her that. So.
She's watching in the other.
Okay. We love you, Kayla.
On the TV, so she knows.
We're glad. We're just glad to have you on your birthday for a little bit. What's that 1984 championship meant to you over the years?
It's meant a lot. Primarily because of the lessons learned from being a part of that great team, and not only the life lessons that we all learned, Blaine, just being a part of a team, teamwork, work ethic, learning to work together for a common goal, all those things, but also probably more than anything, the relationships. It's been 40 years, and we've only lost a handful of guys from that team. Craig Garrick is one of them.
Yeah.
That pops in
Kyle
mind.
Morrell, our guy Kyle Morrell.
That's
yeah.
right. Our two captains.
Danny Plater.
Yeah,
Danny Plater.
Mark Allen. Yeah.
Danny Plater wasn't on that team.
No, he was
Yeah.
early.
Mark Allen. Allen was one of our cornerbacks, but it's been the relationships. We see each other just like I heard you guys talking to Steve about this band of brothers and band of sisters. We really have it, and I think the connection that we have is strengthened by the fact that we attended a religious school. When I was back in Philadelphia, guys would say, there's a special bond. Everybody knows about it throughout the NFL about Notre Dame guys. And guys would tell me, but there's something different about you BYU guys. And they were saying that to me and Jim when I was with the Eagles, because Jim, when I came to the Eagles, Jim had a car dealership deal. I was nobody. Jim went to the car dealership and said, "Hey, I want you to get Vi a car." And they said, he's a punt returner. I don't care. Get him a car. and then he came to me and he said, "Hey, don't even bother shipping your cars from Arizona. I've got you taken care of." It's that kind of thing. And by the way, Jim left the next year, and I stayed, and I got the car dealer sweet deal that Jim set up. And every BYU guy that came along after, it didn't matter how big a star, how little a star, Ty Detmer, Morris Unutoa, Chad Lewis, they all got the car dealer.
You mean to tell me Reno Mahe got a car deal back there?
Reno Mahe got more than that. He got restaurant deals.
Reno took Vi and I one time on a drive around South Philly in the Chickies and Pete's van.
Chicky Mobile.
Yeah, we went around. And then we drove into the state championship football game in the van into the end of the stadium. And I'm like, are we going to get arrested for this? And like Reno was like, calm down. I'm Reno Mahe, and this is Vai Sikahema. And the police officers looked in and they're like, oh, Reno and
What's
Vi.
up, guys?
No problem. Pull right into the stadium. And we stood on the sideline and watched the state championship football game, parochial school state championship football game. Because it's Reno and Vi. Let them in. That's what the cops said. So... You guys were ruling that place back in those days with Andy as the coach.
You got two knucklehead Tongans in the same place, in the same city. That
Yeah,
it's never good.
Hey, speaking of Tongans, you share a unique heritage with Kalani Sitake, BYU's current head coach, where you were the first Tongan to play in the NFL, and Kalani's the first Tongan to be a Division I head coach. That's a pretty cool thing that you guys have in common. What's impressed you the most about Kalani as the Cougars head coach?
Kalani's he's a connector. He's a connector, and he's very organized and just does a great. He connects with these kids. They're a generation younger than he is. Kalani's got to be in his mid-40s, I'm guessing. And he connects with these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids because he just knows them, and he knows their challenges, he knows their strengths, their weaknesses, the things that keep them up at night, and he knows how to help them. I told Kalani the day that they had the Big 12 press conference, and I read about it first, and then I went and looked it up on YouTube and saw it when he just got up and made a declarative statement. This is who we are. We are a church based institution, and that institution is the Church of Jesus Christ. We believe in Jesus Christ, we honor him, and we worship him, and that's who we are. And we're not going to and I told him afterwards, I saw him maybe a week or so later, I told him, I said, I love that you lean into it. Don't turn from it. But I'm speaking to the choir. I love that he stood up and declared to the Big 12 media that this is who we are, and this is who we're going to be. We're going to continue to be, and this is our mission, and we're not going to shy away from it. And part of that mission is to win games. That's what we're going to be here. That's what we're going to do. I love that.
I wrote an article about that in the Deseret News. We got a lot of play. A Division I head football coach talking about Jesus and his football team and the Big 12 in the same paragraph in a conference where, you know what, that's not that far out there. This is a unique Big 12 for BYU and its culture, it seems.
It is. You just think about the areas, where they're going to be playing games. Many of these areas, I'm in the Northeast area presidency, and some of these areas, West Virginia is in the Northeast area of the church. And what I'm fascinated by is just how religious people are. I raised my family in Philadelphia area, and maybe not so much there, but areas like Virginia, those areas, there's churches on every street corner. People just, when they wave at you, they say, God bless. They're God-fearing. They love the Lord. They read the Bible, and I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be great for us. We're there with other like-minded institutions, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be great.
Vai, you and I and Dave were out to lunch a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, I'm lucky. I have a coach on the staff that also happens to be a son of mine, right? And he was talking about, and I was sharing this with you guys, how Kalani had said to them, we will not apologize for who we are or the honor code or any of that in our recruiting. In fact, it should be a huge advantage to us because we're unique. And there are enough good players out there, and they don't all have to be members of our faith, that value those standards and an honor code and what we can give to them here and our religious folks. And so we're not going to brush it under the carpet. We're not going to make it seem like it's a small thing. We're going to lead with it, and we're going to use that as an advantage in our recruiting. And it's really started to pay off. What's your thought on Kalani, like taking that stand in recruiting and just leading with who they are?
This is how I see it, Blaine. this is reminiscent of, and we all three of us are too young to have remembered when this actually happened. But in the early 1970s, Lavelle Reuben Edwards decided that he would lean into keeping scholarships for his missionaries who went on missions and then would come back. And even at BYU, they hadn't done that. The coaches before Lavelle, Tommy Hutchbeth and others, if you left on a mission, you were done. You can come back, but they didn't hold a scholarship for you. And Lavelle decided, I'm going to hold scholarships for these guys. If they go serve the Lord, they deserve to have their scholarships here when they got back. And that was, and you know this because you probably had started thinking about BYU probably in the 70s at some point. And by then, schools were looking at us going, hey, wait a minute. This is a huge disadvantage for us because we're playing, 25-year-olds, and all of a sudden it was what had been a disadvantage for us had suddenly, for some schools, they were saying that it was a big advantage for us. And Lavelle just leaned into it. But Lavelle didn't do it for that reason to get an advantage. Lavelle did it because it was the right thing to do. It was the mission of the church. The prophet at the time, Spencer W. Kimball, had made a clarion call for every worthy young man to go serve a mission. And Lavelle just decided, I'm going to do the right thing. And the right thing turned out to be a great thing for BYU. And it's the same thing that I think, it's very similar to what Kalani is doing. Let's lean into this. The honor code may actually be a help because I think there's a bunch of kids out there who are not of our faith. And the kids like Tyler Algier.
Yeah.
Good example, right? Came to BYU. I think he walked on. He had a chance to go to some other places. But Kalani told me, he says he came here because of his values. And that's exactly, what he got. And we took advantage of an opportunity to get a kid like that. And I think there are other kids like that. And there's probably some on the team. I don't know the roster well enough. You guys are.
Hey, I'll maybe surprise everybody with this. I don't know if this is surprising, but Dave and I have had a couple of conversations with Keaton Slovis. Dave, you just sat down with Keaton again, but had a couple of really good conversations with Keaton about why he's at BYU right now, because there was a lot of schools with maybe bigger names at BYU that wanted Keaton to transfer from Pitt. And he said the two most important things to me were, first and foremost, culture. Where do I fit in? Where are there going to be people like-minded with me? Where am I going to be comfortable as a human being with who I am? And he felt like BYU checked that box in a huge way. And he even admitted that USC wasn't a great fit for him, even though he was breaking records and a Heisman Trophy candidate as a freshman and sophomore. BYU is a much better fit for him culturally. And then he said, I also want to be in a place where they run a pro-style offense. Steve talked about this previously with us, Steve Young, where I could learn from somebody that would be innovative and prepare me better for the National Football League. Those are the two reasons Keaton Slovis chose to come to BYU. And one of the biggest factors was culture over everything else. So Keaton, and now we're hearing from everybody, what a great leader. Oh, my goodness, he fits in so well. He fits in up on campus. He fits in like... So there you go. Keaton Slovis is this year's Tyler Algier.
Linda Murray on our live stream, Cody Epps.
Yep.
Be another one to fit in that.
Yep.
Aiden Robbins, another one to fit in that category for sure.
Yes.
Elder Vai Sikahema is on the Wise Guys tonight. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and ysguys.com. Please continue on our stream to let us know where you're watching from. During Vai's 4 years at BYU, 80, 81, 84, and 85, with a church mission in between, his BYU teams went 47-6.
Yikes.
47-6. I don't know what happened in the 6, but the 47's really, really good.
UTEP's in there. Neither of us are going to address that. We're not going to talk about that UTEP game.
Vai, tell us what? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about the UTEP game.
I said we weren't going to talk about it.
Floyd.
Now explain the UTEP game before you tell us why it happened. This is undefeated. You've won the national championship. You opened the 85 season in El Paso.
We're a top 10 team again. We probably should have won the national championship again in 85.
They dropped 9, and a stubborn Norm Chow won't put Blaine in the game. Okay, now Vi, go ahead.
We go there, and I don't know what happened, but they ran all over us that night. They had a running back that must have had 300 yards rushing. But what I remember about that game is that Floyd Johnson had me stay that night and speak at UTEP Institute on Sunday afternoon. Sunday
wow.
The next day?
And then the next day, so we were counting on a win, and I would go there and kind of puff my chest out. Instead, I show up to I stayed at I think we stayed at a Holiday Inn, and the team flew back. I went back to the hotel and stayed. I think somebody from the sports information stayed with me and was there with me, and we flew back together Sunday evening. But it was like parties. It was like Times Square on New Year's Eve. I mean, cars honking all night. And then I had to go to the Institute, the next day to go speak to them. And everybody wore UTEP shirts.
Oh, nice.
At the Institute fireside.
It was such a shocking loss for all of us, right? Because, first of all, we were in a mode at that time where we never thought we'd lose football games, ever. Like, that would be that wasn't even thinkable that we would lose. UTEP was one of the worst programs in the United States. It was one of the top 5 most shocking upsets in the decade when we lost to them.
It was so shocking that Brent Musburger reported it on the NFL Today the next morning.
Yeah.
I remember watching it as a kid going, hey, we made the NFL Today.
That's why we weren't going to talk about it, and now we talked about it.
Now we have talked about it.
But we had a lot of good... We had a lot of good memories, right, Vi?
I don't know that it was Michigan App State, but it was close.
Yeah,
yeah, it was close.
I tell you, we had a lot more good than that bad.
Sure.
So six losses in Vi's time. Oh my goodness, that's impressive.
Vi, I want you to reach back into your expertise to answer this next question on the art of the return. How does a kid return a punt for positive yards, even for a touchdown? And BYU's guys can listen to this and learn from the master. But what is the art of a punt return?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you is this, and you guys will appreciate this because you know my background. I grew up boxing. My dad was training me in his master plan in our immigration that we'd make our living with me boxing. That's all he knew. My dad was not educated, neither was my mother. But so I started training, and I was fighting since I was 7 years old when I arrived, and all the way up until I started high school. The reason why there's a connection there is that if you think about it, making somebody miss in boxing is, bobbing and weaving and head fakes, and it's that. It's not jumping out of the way. It's head movement, and it's when I started playing football, I realized that it's the exact same thing that you do when you have the ball in your hands in open field. You're not jumping. It's a shake. It's head movement. It's how you make people miss, and I became really good at it. I've never forgotten this. Blaine and I spent a lot of time, commiserating because, we're both backups. And I actually went in and told Lavelle that I wanted to quit. And he said to me, I never forget this. He said to me, that'd be the worst mistake in your life. And I'll tell you why. You don't know this, but you're going to play on Sundays. And I said, Coach, I'm not even playing on Saturdays. Who thinks they're going to play on Sundays if they're not playing on Saturdays? And he said, well, you have a very unique skill set, and we don't value it as much here in college football, but at the next level. He says, I'm telling you something that I know a lot about because scouts come in here all the time, and they always ask about you because in the NFL level, a 10-yard return makes a difference in how they call plays and how drives go. And I just completely disregarded it. But I was, the other thing that made me really good as a punt returner is that it wasn't that I was I'm fearless. There's not a lot that I'm scared of because I was a boxer, right? One of the first things my dad taught me, which is counterintuitive, when somebody throws a punch, rather than Ali was great at it, but he was tall, he would lean away from it and the punches would be short. My dad taught me, look, you're short and stocky. You're going to have to lean. Every time somebody punches, it's counterintuitive, but you got to lean into it and duck while you lean towards a punch. So my point is, I was never fearful on the field. And when the other thing that happened that worked for me is that I wasn't playing on the offense. So every time they punted or kicked the ball, I felt like it was a carry. So I'd be curious to look up BYU stats from the 80s. I bet you I had 5 fair catches in the 4 years that I was at BYU.
Oh, you weren't fair catching the ball. That you weren't going to fair catch it.
I rarely fair caught the ball because I was trying to make a statement to Mike Holmgren and Norm Chow and Ted Tollner, and I didn't have to make it to Lavelle because Lavelle understood. But I was just so angry all the time that I wasn't playing, and I felt like I should have been playing. But Lavelle just kept, telling me, "Hey, listen, just relax. We're gonna do you a favor." Turns out that they did me a huge favor. I got to the NFL, and guess what? I had fresh legs. I got to the NFL and had, I had been worn down from carrying the ball 20 times a game. And I played another decade in the league because of it. So
that 87-yard punt return in Giant Stadium changed your life. It changed your post-football life. It sent you into broadcasting. Rocky Balboa's got his statue. You should have one of yours because you became an icon in Philadelphia. What? So you get the touchdown. You're in the end zone. You approach the Giants goalpost. What inside you made you think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to box this goalpost.
Dave, I had been dabbling in television at that point, and I didn't know it, but I was 2 years away from retirement. But I knew it was getting close, and when I'd actually scored the touchdown running along the Giants sideline, so I had to jog back the width of the end zone to get back to our sideline. But when I was jogging back, for a split second, I saw in the corner of my eye the Giant goalpost, and it was blue, of course, and had the word Giants written on it, top to bottom. And something happened. When I was a kid, my dad and I trained in this old gym. Anybody that grew up in Mesa, Arizona knows Rendezvous Park, where the Oakland A's practiced. It was their field that they played on. Underneath the stadium was an old gym. It was a municipal-run gym, and the heavy bag that was in that gym was the exact color blue. It was like the royal blue, BYU blue, and it looked like the bag looked like the goalpost padding. And I knew enough about television because I'd been dabbling in it that the cameras weren't going to cut the commercial because I just scored.
Right.
And they were probably going to zoom in the cameras on me. So I jogged over there, and knowing that my dad was home in Mesa, Arizona, watching, I dropped the ball and just went over there and just in my head I was thinking, Dad would really appreciate this because he had trained me to be a fighter. Instead, we found football. And I just started digging lefts and rights and uppercuts and the stadium. I was showered. Blaine knows because he's from New York.
Oh yeah.
They were throwing stuff.
The Giants hate the Eagles already, right?
But when we got on the team train to head back to Philadelphia, the head coach Richie Kotite came up to me and he said, Richie Kotite was hilarious. He came up to me and he said, "Hey kid." He's from Long Island. "Hey, kid, you understand what just happened to you tonight, right?" I said, "No, what are you talking about?" He goes, "You're a made man in Philly."
A made man in Philly.
You're a made man in Philly. You'll never buy another drink or another cigar or dinner in Philadelphia.
Was he right? Now, you didn't do the cigars or the drinks, but was he right? Your fandom took off.
It helped me get a TV job.
Yeah.
Say, hey,
keep it.
I want to tell you guys, did it help him? Like Vi, and I want to talk about, we're going to talk about the Jose Canseco thing in a minute, but it was after the Jose Canseco thing. I was back, Brendan and I and the kids were back staying with Vi and Keala, and Andy was the coach for the Eagles. Reno was still playing. Chad was still playing. And Vi's friend, Bernard, was it Bernard that was fighting? I think Bernard was in a fight. Bernard Hopkins was in a fight.
Hopkins?
Yeah. But Vi is too cheap to get HBO, and the fight was on HBO. So we needed to drive over to the other side of Philly to go watch it on a friend's TV, right? I don't know if I even remembers this story, but so we leave their house out in Mount Laurel and we drive through the town and we come. I think we might have gone by the station to pick something up, and we're going out to his friend's house to watch the boxing match because Vi doesn't have cable. So we got to go to somebody else's house to have cable. And we couldn't buy the fight because Vi doesn't have cable. So we're driving, and I come up to a red light, and I turn my turn signal on, and I stop, and I turn right. And just as I'm doing that, we hear like, woo, and we get pulled over. And Vi's like, oh, man, you can't turn right on red at that corner. I'm like, was there a sign? Like, I didn't see the sign. And we were in my rental car. And Vi's sitting in the passenger seat. And the police officer comes over. He comes up to the window. And he says, hey, I need your license and registration, please. And I go, well, it's a rental car. And then Vi leans forward and says, hey, officer, this is my fault. I apologize. I'm from here. I knew that you couldn't turn right on red. This is my friend. He's from out in Utah. This is a rental car. He didn't know that he couldn't turn there, and I didn't tell him, and we're terribly sorry. And the officer kind of puts his head in my window, and he goes, Vai Sikahema, is that you, Vi? And Vi's like, yeah, it's nice to meet you, officer. Like, and the guy reaches right across me as if I don't exist, puts his arm right across my face and shakes Vi's hand. He goes, it is like an honor and a pleasure to meet you, Vi. What are you guys doing in this neighborhood? And Vi's like, well, we're going over to a friend's house. You know, Bernard Hopkins is fighting. And he goes like, well, let me give you guys an escort out of this neighborhood. Like, you guys, you shouldn't be in this neighborhood. And don't let this hurt your day. And I'm so excited that I met you. He had Vi sign something.
Nice.
And I got no ticket. And I got a police escort out of that neighborhood
That's
because
the
I was
power.
with Vi Sikahema. So when you punch a goalpost
Things change.
in Giant Stadium, everything changed in your life and you become an icon in Philadelphia. That's just one example of my time with Vai Sikahema in Philadelphia.
And Vi's TV career is what brought us together as our respective TV stations sent us to the Sochi Olympics in 2014, and we spent 25 great days hanging out together, and we had church services with the KGB looking through the glass. That was a first for the 4 or 5 of us, but that brought us together, and Vai Sikahema, now a 2-time Pro Bowl kick returner, with us on the Wise Guys. Vi, you were called as a general authority of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in April of 2021. So for those on the live stream and will listen to this podcast and follow us that don't know, what does a general authority do?
We general authorities, 70, our main objective is to do the job, help the 12 in their service. In section 107 of the Doctrine and Covenants points that out, that the 12 are to call on the 70 and no other, as it were. So there's only going to be 12 of them, but the 70 is structured so that it could expand. But even as the general authorities, I think there's roughly 100 of us, maybe 104, 105. I don't have the exact number, but they've also added area 70s. That position has been around in various forms for the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years. And there's probably 350 of them. And their number will continue to grow as the church grows. So we, we're out teaching and proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. We just got back last week. We were in Washington, D.C. the weekend before, and then all of last week I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with my wife on a mission tour. So if you're listening and you have a son or a daughter serving in the Pittsburgh mission, I want you to know that they're doing well. Yeah, we travel about 3 weekends out of the month, and traveling to state conferences, reorganizations of stakes, or just visiting stakes. We go to priesthood leadership conferences with a member of the 12. For us, usually it's Quentin Cook of the 12, or other members of the Council of the 12. We accompany them and help and teach and do everything that we can to strengthen the church and grow the kingdom.
So how in all those years of competitive sports did that prepare you for this stage of your life? What did sports do for you?
That's a good question, Dave. Because nobody signs up for these callings, right? Any more than bishops do or stake presidents do, but most certainly not these callings, because they're full time, and they're full time for depending on your age. I was called when I was 58 3 years ago, and they go until you're age 70. They release you emeritus when you reach the age of 70, one of the things that but we all feel this way, no matter who you are, where you come from, what your background is, and you know many of the backgrounds of the senior leaders of the church. They're incredibly smart, very bright. Many of them led universities as presidents. They were titans of industry, judges, lawyers, CEOs, CFOs, you name it. And here I am, a former NFL player and worked in television, and I didn't graduate from college until, I was age 40, because I was a complete knucklehead in college, as Blaine well knows. So you wonder, my gosh, I'm here with these men who are just, one guy is smarter than the next. They're all, but I realized over time that's, the Lord doesn't call those men either because they went to Yale or Harvard or Wharton. He calls them because they have something that they can add that will help build the kingdom. And I think maybe, I have some gifts. I know I have gifts. There's things that I can do that other people find a struggle with. I can connect, and I don't know if it's because I think part of to go back to your question, how did my experience as an athlete prepare me for this calling, Dave? That's such a great question, because I think because I played football, people always want to know us, right? They always wanted to be around us and hear about what happens with the team. And so I connected easily. Blaine and I are the same person, except he's white and I'm brown. We connect easily with people because we can talk and visit, and we enjoy people's company. You're basically the same way too, Dave. I think by nature, people think that I'm an extrovert, and I am. But I've had to be an athlete. Yeah. Because everywhere you go, people stop you, and I think that's one of the things that has helped my ministry, is that I connect people. I connect with people easily, and in doing so, I learned this when I was a young bishop, and then I was a stake president back east. Just connecting to people isn't enough. I've connected to people, and then turn them towards the Savior, lead them towards the Savior. And I think all those things help prepare me for the calling that I have.
Yeah, great answer. Do you think Vi's ready for 5 questions?
Yeah. You ready for 5? Yours aren't exactly the same as Steve's, by the way. We mix them up a little bit. Yeah. Then I got one. Okay. Then Dave's going to ask you one additional question.
There's a bonus question.
I told Dave a story, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, listen, we need to ask Vi about this."
Can I just say this before you start the 5 questions? Yeah. People ought to know that the 3 of us get together and we have lunch periodically. Yes, and we just get together just to do this. I thought it was brilliant that you guys decided to do something. You're probably going to monetize it because this is what we do when we get together. We go sit at lunch, usually at your country club, and we sit and tell stories and laugh. And the lunches are usually like, what, 4?
The last was like 5. Brenda said to me the last time, she's like, "Are you just coming back from the club?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "You were Vi and Dave that whole time?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "That's like almost 5 hours. Why didn't you have dinner while you were there?"
Remember, they did bring the dinner menus.
And think about it. When Steve was on with us a little earlier, Vi, Like when we get together with Steve, whoever we get together with, that band of brothers we talked about, we can just sit and reminisce for hours. That's the format of this show, which is really why this show is so fun.
We had dinner with Sherry Dew the other night, 3.5 hours.
Yeah, we sat with Sherry at Roost Chris for 3.5 hours. It was so fun.
So
Sherry Dew is one of my favorite people in the world, and she's been bugging me forever to write a book. And I'm not like Steve, where I can sit down and focus. And Steve's written 2 or 3 books, and I've never written one.
Well, you should.
It's time. Sherry can help you. She's the best. So,
all right, here we go.
Okay, this is 5 questions for Vi. Favorite sports movie? Some are the same. Favorite sports movie?
Rocky.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
There's a shock.
Favorite singer or band? Favorite singer or band? I think it's going to be old school for Vi. Favorite singer or band?
Yeah, I got an idea.
I haven't listened to new music since 1983, 84.
So you're going to go with Morris Day in the Time that you used to perform in the Star Palace.
That was me. That was Alvin Salima.
I know who it was.
I'm going to go with Lionel Richie.
Richie. That is old school. I saw him. We saw him at the Salt Palace or something years ago.
He's phenomenal.
If you hear him now, he's still the same.
He's pure still. Favorite breakfast cereal?
Favorite breakfast cereal is Honey Bunches of Oats.
Okay.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah, that's a good one. A favorite kick or punt returner of all time, other than yourself?
It's got to be my man Billy White Shoes.
Yes, Billy White Shoes Johnson.
I mean, the funky chicken dance is an all. I mean, come on.
Who hasn't done that on the side yard? Who hasn't done the Billy White Shoes Johnson celebration?
Who has to spike the ball behind your head?
Yes.
and then do the funky chicken
I'm so
dance.
glad you said Billy White Shoes. I didn't even think of him, but that he was part of my youth, right? Because I loved him.
Oh my gosh.
So
unbelievable.
Your favorite advice from Lavelle Edwards?
Favorite advice from Lavelle Edwards is, son, don't quit.
Yeah.
You're going to play on Sundays.
That was good advice. By the way, he talked. Mark was on the show with us, and at the end of the show, he's like, "Can I tell you guys something I've never told?"
Mark who?
Mark Wilson.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah. He says, "Can I tell you guys something that I've never told before?" And we're like, "Sure, it's just us, Mark.
Just us.
It's just us." And I don't know how many 100,000 people are going to listen to this, but and then he told us about how he went in and quit, and Lavelle talked him out of it. After his junior year, he was quitting, and Lavelle talked him out of it. So you're not the only one.
He's a wise man.
I think Jim McMahon went in there and wanted to quit and transfer.
Yeah.
How many times?
Yeah. How many times?
times?
So this is a bonus question. I've used this saying with Dave so many times. And he's like the very first time I used it, Dave's like, "Where'd you get that saying?" I go, "That is Vi's saying. Vi taught me this saying." And so we use it all the time, and we credit you. We footnote you every time. And we want to know the origin of this saying. Because you've said to me, and you taught me to say this, if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3.
The origin is Jim McMahon.
So Jim used to say that?
That was, Jim had a bunch of sayings that he used to say. It's no secret Jim uses cannabis.
Yes, I don't think that's a secret to anybody.
One of his sayings was, "Man made alcohol, God made weed. I'm rolling the dice with the big guy." That was one of his famous sayings. But he used to always say, because Jim never paid for anything.
No, that's true.
Not clothes, not shoes, not golf clubs, not club fees, tea time, nothing.
Nothing.
He just, everything for Jim was free, and he always told me, he probably still calls.
He calls me kiddo.
Too.
He calls you kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 61 years old today, and he still calls me kid. But he always told me, if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take 3.
So I've been crediting you because Vi's the one that taught me that. I did not realize that Jim Vi, every time I see Jimmy Mack, he puts his arm around my neck and gives me a hug, and he always goes, "How you doing, kiddo?" He still calls me kiddo. He's still to this day. He used to, when I was a freshman, he'd come out from his time was 7-on-7. Steve would go in, and he'd come over and he'd go, "Hey kiddo, come over here. Let's talk about what you just saw when I was in there." And he would teach me. He was such a great mentor, but Still calls me kiddo to this day. Still calls you kid, huh?
He calls everybody kid. I think maybe because he doesn't remember people's names.
That might be.
Yeah.
But Mac is he's one of a kind. You know when I'm around him, I think I told this story at Danny Plater's funeral. But my nickname for him is Bishop. I always call him Bishop McMahon, and he always cracks up. He laughs. He says, "No way, never." And I said, "Jim, listen to me. Someday you're going to join the church, and I'll come baptize you." And I said, and I always tell him, within 3 to 5 years after you're baptized, you're probably going to be a bishop.
What does he say?
He says, why do you think I'm going to be a bishop? And I said, I'll tell you why you're going to be a bishop. Because no one will ever come confess anything that you haven't done twice. So you'll be very empathetic to people.
Very empathetic.
And confess. And he just cracks up. And so Jim's got a good heart. He's still crazy, but, you know, those are the stories, Blaine, as you know, and you too, Dave. Those are the stories that we can tell. There's a whole bunch of other stories.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
it's not
Glenn,
fit for broadcast. You guys will lose your license.
Glenn just hopped on our live stream, said good morning from the Philippines. Vai's an amazing man and boxer. Whether he's beaten Jose Canseco in a charity bout in Atlantic City or punching the goalpost, he can throw it. So let's finish with this question, Vi. So when you and Blaine went door to door selling fire extinguishers as college kids, what was your part of the job? And why would I ever open my door and see the two of you trying to sell me a fire extinguisher and buy one?
Hey, we had this routine, and we went with they were called halon fire extinguishers, and there was a gas that would extinguish fires. And we had this routine where we took a pan, like one of Brenda's pans, cooking pans, and we took lighter fluid, to start barbecues, right? And a match, and we had do a little demonstration with these little canisters were, like the size of an aerosol can,
right on my front door, right at my doorstep.
We do it on your carpet in your living room.
You're going to do this
we
experiment.
would come in, and by the way, this was the summer of '84, so we wore our BYU
we did
polos. And the moment they saw us, most people just, hey, come on in, we'll talk football. So we go in and we do our little demonstration, and get this, Blaine would do the talking in the demonstration. He would you pour the lighter fluid in the pan, strike a match and light it, and then spray it with the halon fire extinguisher, and it was extinguished, right? And to make the point that it's safe, he would hand the pan to me and tell him what I would do with the pan.
So I would say it's non-toxic. It won't hurt your pets. It won't hurt your children.
How did he prove that?
And I would say, Vi, and I would hand it to him, and Vi would lick the pan to prove that it was non-toxic.
That's how you close the deal?
Now, it's only been 40 years, but I haven't suffered much from it.
So now how many of these things did you guys sell this demonstration?
We actually killed it.
We sold a truckload because we knocked on the door of a guy who was a member of the Cougar Club.
Yeah.
And he owned what were they?
Trailer parks all over.
Trailer parks all over Montana, Idaho, Utah. He owned trailer parks, and he needed to have one in every trailer park.
Yep.
In every one of his trailers, and we sold the entire.
We sold the whole summer's worth of an allotment that Vi and I had in like a couple weeks, and then you know what we did?
We bought.
Yes, we did. We went and bought scooters.
Twin scooters.
Yes, we did. Aero 80s, Honda Aero 80s, and Kayla and Vi and Brendan and I went on scooter dates all the time.
You earned all that money and bought scooters.
So, and here's the thing. Obviously, halon is not is not toxic and all that, because Vi licked I don't know how many pans.
How many pans
before we ran into Brother Chamberlain, who bought all those from us.
How did Blaine get you to do that? Is that as part of the demonstration? Like, who came up with, and then you licked the pan? Who came up with that idea?
It's because he's got a silver tongue. He can talk you into anything. This guy, he goes, look, let me do the talking, and because I'm the quarterback, and you just lick the pan. I said, all right, I guess I'll lick the pan. By the way, little known fact, it is against the rules at BYU since 1985 to ride scooters. It's called the Fowler Sikahema rule.
Yes.
When Lavelle saw us riding them, he said, "Hey, where'd you guys get those?" "Oh, we bought them because you can't ride those."
Nope, don't ride those.
As long as you're on football scholarship, you're not allowed to ride those. We didn't know that. So,
hey, let's just say this: the presentation was excellent. Vi did a tremendous job.
Fantastic.
We sold a truckload of fire extinguishers, enough that we went and paid cash for 2 Honda Aero 80 scooters, and had a great time that fall.
You guys were pioneers for Cirque du Soleil. That's all.
And we were both living in Y Mountain Terrace at the time. So
no, if we could have done this with bug spray and
oh yeah,
and then solar panels, we would have.
We started
a long time ago.
Vi and I started the whole summer sales business at BYU.
Right? That's
we just
impressive.
didn't have the vision that Todd Peterson and Vivint and all those guys had when they got it going, because we were just way ahead of our time, and we didn't make that kind of money.
Brother, happy birthday.
Yes,
I love you guys.
Happy
Me
birthday!
too.
We love you, and so fun to have you on. So fun to have Steve with all of us, and give Cal a big hug for us, and all of our love for sharing you with us on your birthday. We appreciate it very much.
Hey, which game are
Only you guys.
Which game are you
Only
coming?
you guys. No one else.
Which game are you coming down to?
I'm coming down this weekend because I'm everybody's off. We don't have any assignments, and I'm coming the Friday game before General Conference.
Cincinnati. Yeah.
Good.
Coming to that game. I hope I see you guys.
You
Yeah,
bet.
we'll see you for sure. So
The great Vi Sikahema, Elder Sikahema, was so generous with his time on his birthday. Thanks, Vi.
Thanks,
we'll see you
Vi.
at lunch.
Love you guys.
Love you too. What a treat tonight.